after completing assignment 1 and creating my personal development plan, the main leadership styles that I had to work on was to be more authoritative in my style of management. And to do that, I decided to controversially use Theory X and transactional leadership models, which a lot of people think are not good ones to have, but it was where I was lacking and I needed to try and complete task more. So to do that, I first of all took a much more evaluative approach to what my colleagues were doing instead of just accepting what the colleagues were doing. So I took time out to explain a task that I wanted a colleague to do, and then allowed them to go away and complete that task to the highest possible standard that they could achieve. And then on the back of that, went in and would evaluate with them how well they'd done the task. So a good example of this is I asked a colleague to go in and clear out the produce back up, and they spent half an hour doing it, and when I went round to walk them round it, they'd taken all the rubbish and put it in a bin bag, but just left the bin bag in the back of the backup. So they hadn't gone that extra step to take all the rubbish actually out of the backup and just get rid of it completely and sweep the floor. So although I could praise them for doing a good job, they hadn't done the best job, which is what, as the managers, need to strive to do all the time. So this validation I applied to every part of my department, and we do a lot of process, and there was a phase at the start of PDP2 where I was being validated by my line manager and by the GSM, who's the store manager, and I was being caught short on processes that I'd expected my colleagues to do and had asked them to do, but hadn't taken the time to go and validate whether they were 100% complete or not. So to make sure that this was done, I spent time validating them in the same way that I was being validated, and also put mechanisms in place to check when I wasn't there. So an example of that would be a quality check sheet in produce. So we started that, and that colleague has to go and sign it every time they go and do a quality check in produce. So I can go in on any given day, and any gaps in that sheet or any signatures that we've then had an issue with quality, I know that the colleague either hasn't done the task or hasn't done the task 100%, and I can use that to go and challenge them on their completion of the task. I would consider all of these as successes in using parts of Theory X, as I've cut down the parameters that colleagues have in the department to go and do their own thing, and allowed them to focus on the set task, on the correct standard, and they know now that it will be checked, so there's no point in them doing half a job because I will challenge them on it. However, by being uncompromising, my colleagues have certainly noticed a change in my leadership style, and they've noticed the difference in the way that I speak to them. So before, I would have empathised when they complained that what I was asking them to do was too big a task for the amount of hours in their shift, and allowed that to become an excuse for not doing it. But now I explain that the current demands of the business require that all the tasks are completed to that highest standard, and there isn't extra provision of resource. So although in a way I still do empathise with them in my head, I've stopped doing that out loud because I need this task completion from them, and I'm not doing either of us any favours by allowing them to let this excuse become a reason. I've been using Theory X to help me stand firm in my expectations of the colleagues and remain focused on completing the tasks. So as much as it allows me to guide the colleagues, it's more about how I'm guiding myself, and I quite often look at it when I feel like I want to make a concession or allow something to slip by. I use it to keep myself on track. So I asked my peers and my store manager for feedback as a method to assess my progress with my PDP, and my GSM was pleased with the outputs, but still concerned with my ability to make things stick in the department. So this leads me to believe that he wants Theory X to have an even greater part of my management style. Like I said, I struggle to remain focused, and it's reflected in what my colleagues achieve in their tasks, and as soon as I stop validating, their standard will drop back because they know I'm not doing it. So my GSM wants me to continue and just work on consistency with doing that. When I spoke to my peers, they echoed a lot of my strengths in their feedback. I'm working closely with individuals and as a team player. And in my GSM's feedback, he also highlighted my ability to deal with people without upsetting them as a key strength. But to continue to develop, I've got to make sure I'm not afraid of causing mild upset at the expense of completing a standard. So I've been trying to do this by embracing transactional leadership and promoting compliance through using rewards. So I can use reward and recognition that ASDA has to soften the blow of the increased amount of task and my increased higher expectations of what the colleagues are doing in the department. Although I've tried to categorise my successes and failures throughout this process, there's been an underlying uncertainty to development in ASDA throughout. The company approach has been business as usual, despite structural trials and rumours of jobs being under threat should the trials become reality. Today, all the managers in the company were briefed that the huge restructural plans were going ahead and all department manager and current trading manager roles were being removed. We were also told that the leadership behaviours that we exhibit as managers would be considered when selection processes for new roles begin. At the start of PDP2, I did not realise how important the changes I could effect to my leadership style might prove to be just a couple of months later. And even though I consider increased completion of tasks as a success that outweighs the negative morale impact as a failure, I cannot help but worry that should colleagues be approached to help gauge my leadership style, that this may have done more harm than good. As I've said, morale is pretty low in my department just now while they adjust to a new way of working and my new style of management. The biggest success I can hope for from this is that I can manage to achieve the optimum state of leadership at the centre of John Adair's model and effectively balance my strengths in people management with my new approach to increasing consistent productivity of the highest standard. I feel I'm about to enter the most important time to utilise my PDP despite the module being finished, as consultations are about to begin and I'm starting my campaign to secure the best possible outcome for me and ASDA as a company.